Kids come tonight.
Sarah's flying in tonight.
And then she's working tomorrow.
Yeah, the one where
Both jobs.
selected the scholarship.
Immediately. I would be asleep when she gets there.
I just read this thing in the paper, all the beaches that are open, the city put it out. One of the beaches is Hughes Street.
Oh, did you see that? It was listed in a weird way.
I wrote a comment on it. So where will the stand be placed on Hughes Street?
What were you talking about, enforcement, is that what?
Figure out what the heck that was supposed to be either.
The city put out it.
Doesn't yours run this way? Uh-oh.
Do you think it was supposed to be Baltimore or something maybe? I don't know what the heck.
They don't think they even guard Baltimore.
Yeah, maybe.
Hughes Street, that's an interesting place to have a lifeguard stand open. Oh, well, it was funny.
As long as you enjoyed yourself,
People
that's
will
what
be
counts.
looking for that
I like your
street.
glasses. A little bit of
Same
green in
old
them.
ones.
Are they?
You know, I got
There's
this
more
color
green in them this time.
because my granddaughter had this color. I'm like, oh, I really like them. I'll get them. Then she got something else. But I like them. Color.
Well, if grandmom got them, they weren't as cool.
Yeah, they're not cool anymore. That's for sure. Oh, Mary's not here. Is Mary coming? There's chairs for her. Oh, there's a chair down there. He's not coming.
Well, we'll see what happens this summer, but I was absolutely appalled about that. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. What a weird. Oh, yeah, you didn't hear about, oh, yeah.
Didn't get it, but of course, every day I was like,
Do you need one? Okay.
It's on. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. Seeing none, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Mrs. Werner?
Here.
Ms. Hessel?
Say here. Here.
Here? Here. Thank you. Mr. Ledwin?
Here.
Mrs. Notch? Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mrs. McDade?
Here.
Mr. Venuto? Thank you.
Okay, we have minutes from April 28th, 2022. We need a resolution to pass those.
I'll pass that.
Second.
Abstain?
Okay, wait, so we have a motion by Mrs. Werner? Okay, seconded by Mr. Ledwin, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Mrs. Werner, seconded by Mr. Ledwin. Mrs. Werner?
Abstain.
Ms. Hessel?
Abstain?
Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, first resolution is 52622.
Oh.
KAC Glass Properties LLC at 933 Beach Avenue.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mary, seconded by Mr. Ledwin. Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel?
Abstain?
Mr. Werner, Mrs. Werner?
Abstain.
Mrs. McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Mary?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. We'd like to publicly compliment our attorney, Mr. King. This was a very clear and concise summary of what occurred as a result of the appeal, and I think it was very, very well done. Thank you.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next resolution is the same date, 5262022. Michael and Sarah Knoll at 1303 New Jersey Avenue. We have a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Murray, seconded by Mrs. McDade. Mrs. Werner?
Abstain.
Ms. Hessel?
Abstain.
Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
No.
Mrs. McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next one is 5262022. Walter and Anna DeForest at 1500 Veneto Avenue. We have a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Werner, seconded by Mrs. McDade. Mr. Walsh?
No.
Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel?
Abstain.
Mrs. Werner?
Abstain.
Mrs. McDade?
No.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Their first application is John and Rebecca Adams at 339 Congress Street. You want to come up?
Mr. King, would you like to make an announcement about the Valentine application?
Sure. What was the vote on that last resolution?
It was 3 yes, 2 no, 2 abstain.
Just wanted to double check. Okay, the Paul and Nancy Valentine application for 1312 Maryland Avenue, Block 1148, lots 12 and 13, requested an adjournment, which was granted by our chairperson. It is adjourned to June 23rd, 2022. Anyone who wishes to be heard on that application should appear on that date. There will not be any further notice published, so this is the notice for that application, Paul and Nancy Valentine. I did see Ms. Werner recused herself because she's within 200 feet for the Adams application, so she's taking a seat in the gallery there. All right.
Board members, Ms. Tom Hilligus, along with Margaret Kennedy Hilligus, here tonight on behalf of John and Rebecca Adams. I have just a few exhibits, A1, with pre-markers, A1, A2, and A3. A1 is an aerial view of the house, A2 is a street view, and A3 is in the corner. All three
I'm also going to swear in our board engineer. If each of you, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hood, could you turn on your mic?
Yeah, green means
Oh, green, okay. I saw red, I thought red was on.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. John, if you could give a brief description to the board as to, what you're proposing and why, what you and Rebecca want to do.
First of all, we're just excited to be here. We've been in Cape May for 30 years, and we love it in Cape May.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Bring,
We've been in Cape May for 30 years. We've been on Congress Street for 30 years. We love the neighborhood and just love everything about Cape May. We're proposing to raise the existing level of our garage to be level with the first floor of our house, and which will also provide easy access to the new living space we're proposing. The space is going to be used as a great room, which gives us more living space, or a gathering area. And it'll have a high ceiling, a fireplace, big windows, we love light, a seating area, and a TV, of course. So, we also propose constructing a small second-floor loft, which would be accessed from the great room by a spiral staircase. This small space will be used by, or as an artist studio by Rebecca. And frankly, it's her kind of dream come true to have her own space in our place in Cape May. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Farnham, who is the architect, I know he's appeared here on many occasions. Would you like me to put his his credentials on the record? No?
He's here every month.
All right. Paul, if you would, can you explain to the board exactly where it's located, the zoning district, and exactly what it is that the Adams are proposing?
Sure. So the proposed project is located on the corner of Claghorn and Congress Street. It's in the R2 zoning district as well as the historic district. Ultimately, as John began to explain, what they're trying to do is expand their living space, and they're doing that in the area of the garage, so they're not adding to the footprint of the building. In fact, we're reducing the footprint of the building and therefore the lot coverage by 3%, from 43% to a conforming 40%. Also, as John began to suggest, what we would like to do is build a loft. So the loft is a little over, as presently designed, 100 square feet, but it is not going to be entirely enclosed, and it's going to be accessed by a spiral stair. So that spiral stair also eats into the area of the loft space. The loft space is intended to be exclusively used as an art studio, which is, as also mentioned, a dream for Becky. We are losing a parking space in the garage, but we're gaining it back because, as I suggested, we're ultimately reducing the footprint of the area. So we're pulling the front of the garage back towards the rear of the garage by 2 feet. So that's where our reduction is. And in doing so, we're gaining that parking space back in the driveway. It is 4 bedrooms presently, and that's the intention, is to keep it 4 bedrooms. We do require 2 parking spaces, so that's kind of how that decision was made. We can also, per the zoning ordinance, request permission and get a permit to park a 3rd car at the base of the driveway, but as previously mentioned, we only require 2 parking spaces as a 4-bedroom. So that's really the summary of what we're trying to achieve, and happy to answer any other questions.
And the loft, the front has a small, is it a 4-foot wall or a 3-foot, or is it railing? If you could just kind of explain a little bit about the loft, the openness of it.
Sure. Well, I don't think that decision has been made final yet, but the intention is for it to remain open.
And there'll be no door, for example, to go into it, other than just up the steps and you're in, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, now, if you would, could you, as you know, under the ordinance, under municipal land use law, specifically 40:55D-70C1 and 2, the two variances being requested either under a hardship or a flexible C variance. If you would, could you take the board through the C1 criteria and explain how, by reason of the exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or the shape of this property, or by the exceptional topographic conditions that affect the property, or by reason of an extraordinary and exceptional situation uniquely affecting this piece of property, how does it comply with the C1?
Certainly. So for the C1 variance, we believe there is a hardship specifically related to the lot size. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, given its location in town and one of the oldest areas of town, its lot size does not conform with the present zoning ordinance. So where 7,500 square feet is required, the current lot, as it exists, only has 6,400 square feet.
Okay. And the applicant is asking for relief because of the unusual condition or condition of the undersized lot, correct?
That's correct.
And as you stated, that the lot is pre-existing, can't be added to, and you can't also take land from anyone else, correct? It's fully developed.
Correct.
Okay. And the garage, as it currently sits, is a lawfully existing structure too, correct?
Correct.
How about with respect to the substantial detriment to the public good and substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan? Is there any substantial detriment to the public good?
In my opinion, I would say no. It is located at the rear property line adjoining to an adjacent property. It runs perpendicular to the street. It's otherwise not very visible from the street. So I don't believe it would provide a detriment as it is, but I believe it's appropriately located such that this development on top of an existing garage would not be intrusive to the surrounding context.
Okay. Now, with respect to the standard under the C2 criteria, it requires a balancing of the positive and the negative criteria. What would be the benefits, has been codified in 40:55D-2, under the definition sections, what purposes, or the purposes of zoning, what purposes would be advanced if the board were to grant this ordinance?
I would say one of the purposes cited in the municipal land use law would be the enhancement of a desirable visual environment. I also believe it's enhancing the historic district and conserving the historic district, which is another point to be made, another benefit. And it's also coordinating with the requirement to provide sufficient space for appropriate locations for various uses. We're not proposing an open art gallery for the public. We're just more so a quaint art studio for the owner.
And do the benefits outweigh the detriment?
Yes, in my opinion, they would.
And how about the negative criteria? Can relief be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance and zone plan?
Yes, that's my opinion, as I kind of alluded to in my previous answer.
Okay. Now, as you know, the applicant is also requesting, well, the applicant is requesting the lot area variance, pre-existing, non-conforming condition. How about the rear yard setback?
Correct. So the rear yard, it is a corner lot, so the rear yard is one of the adjoining property lines down Claghorn. And the existing exterior wall perpendicular to that property line is encroaching in that setback. It's presently 7 3/4 feet, more or less, 7.7 feet. And building on top of it, we would be exacerbating that nonconformity. So that's why we're seeking the variance for the rear yard setback as well.
And again, the rear setback is pre-existing.
Correct.
Okay. And with respect to the C2 criteria, you stated that the same negative criteria is the same for both the C1 and the C2, correct?
Right.
Okay. At this point, I don't have any other questions of Mr. Farnham. I don't know if the board has any questions regarding it.
I have a question. With regard to, you talked earlier about the fact that the lot coverage is decreasing. I know some of that was associated with taking out the concrete driveway.
That is
Okay.
correct.
I could not find in the calculations, and it may have been there are slate pavers that rim the building. Where is the information associated with that lot coverage number? Is that included? I didn't know if it was included in the concrete?
It should be. Typically on our architectural site plans, we indicate paver versus concrete with different hatches. And we also,
You did in your design, but there was a table in the center with a couple of different numbers, and in that, I was trying to ascertain
Sure.
the 50% and the number and how it was adding up to the new, coverage number, and I had a hard time doing that. So I can show it to you if you want to look at it, but I just had a question about that. And then the other thing is, and were you originally planning on adding 2 bedrooms?
no.
No.
Yeah, I have a question.
That was a,
Okay, all right, because
Right.
I think that there's
that's why the.
perhaps some confusion, at least on my part, because our document, I'll let it go. Okay. So if you just want to answer this question, and this is just really for me. I cannot determine where these pavers are coming into your calculation here. So I'm clear here, right? And including this space here, but I'm trying to determine. Yeah,
Understood.
it's not delineated, and so therefore it's,
So the hatch here,
yeah,
coordinating with this legend, area of brick and concrete to be
yep,
replaced. right?
understood.
This is the concrete driveway area.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yep,
The asterisk indicating this is the 50% lot coverage.
understood. Where's this?
This is the area of remaining slate.
Where's the number?
Okay, I understand what you're.
Because it should be included in the calculation because it's 50%, and I don't see that number on here.
I think there's a discrepancy here between concrete path area and slate paver path area versus the concrete driveway area. But. in
You
any
understand
case,
where I would get confused, because you're getting
absolutely.
50% credit for taking this out to
Certainly.
be able to include in your lot coverage, and this exists as slate, as permeable now. It should be included in your total lot coverage
Certainly.
number.
We can
Okay,
s- We can certainly
All right.
verify
Okay.
those numbers for you.
that was my question.
But thank you for pointing.
You're welcome.
And not jumping
Sorry,
ahead, I
probably
think
didn't
Mr.
want
Hurlis.
No, I appreciate that.
You're not getting a variance for lot coverage, so whatever
No.
you end up doing has to
Yeah.
be 40%.
Correct. Understood. Yep.
And I didn't understand how you went from 43% currently down to 40% when that slate pavers wasn't included, at least as far as I could tell in the calculation. That was just my,
Quick question. You're losing the garage, right?
Correct.
Garage right now is used as parking or storage?
Yeah, primarily.
Where are you going to put all your stuff? This sounds like a crazy question, but where are you going to put your kayaks, beach chairs, all that stuff? There's no shed going to be up here in the backyard. That's my concern.
No.
Like where, we all have a lot of stuff, and where's that all going to be?
Shall I answer? Sure. We have a cute area under our front deck that's always been there. And that's where all the gardening and rakes and all that jazz is.
you have a crawl space access point on the other side of the property, correct? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm
There's
talking
like a
about
door
right under the front.
Under
on
the
Under the
Congress,
front porch, okay,
On Congress.
okay,
And so that's where that stuff is all going to go.
okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Okay, so The number of bedroom confusion comes from my report. And that's because I took a conservative approach, and I have some questions with, the plans are a little confusing to me. There's some unlabeled rooms that I thought may or may not be bedrooms. So just, if you look at the second sheet, which is A101, the proposed first floor plan, which is on the right-hand side, shows the new living area, the garage being converted to the new living area, and it shows the circular stairs that are in the corner of that, with the loft above, right? Okay.
Oh, good.
So the loft is included in your floor area ratio calculations as 100 square feet. Is that loft shown anywhere, like, as a floor plan and labeled as, like, to what the use is? Tonight, we're hearing it as an artist studio is like the first I heard of it, so if it is indeed an artist studio, then it needs to be called out with the floor area, because on the second sheet, A102, you would think that there would be, loft would be shown on the second floor. It's not. We're just looking at the roof pitch at that point. Do not have his plan.
So this is what Craig is, you've got 100 square feet here. It's not defined specifically here as a loft or an artist studio. I mean, anyone would think that it would be living space and.
Yeah, so that needs to be revised on the plan and show that that's.
So, I just want to comment on that. We had issued a more recent revision, so I'm that's why I'm confused, and I'm looking at the plans that you have, and I know that they were submitted. So and there is, and not that they differ materially, but they do have that exact plan on it.
Okay. I'm looking at a plan that was revised 12/23/2021. Is that what everyone has?
Yeah.
So there were drawings submitted, but it was too late for Craig to do the review before the meeting.
Okay, so my report is reflecting these plans, so that's what the board has in front of them, and that's what we're gonna talk about.
Understood.
If you're gonna submit revised plans, then,
We have November.
Yeah,
Yeah, November 8th.
Which sheet
so it's 11/8 is the date, and then there's
are
a,
you looking on that you're seeing the date?
A102 has a revision date of 12/23/2021.
Okay, I have A101. A102.
Okay, so one, I would ask if the,
What plans does he think he has?
I,
Yeah, it's 11/8 too.
Right, so we submitted a revised set that was dated 4/14, and what Ms. Keenan just stated is that it was submitted apparently too late for Craig to review it. So,
shouldn't be talking about that plan, because you're just confusing everyone. That's why we don't allow, once you're deemed complete, we don't allow submissions after that. It has to be the plan that was deemed complete.
understood. So what I would like to state is that they're not materially different, but they do include the plan that you're saying should be
Okay,
included.
So just talk about this plan. So as a condition of approval, he's going to be required to show the loft and show the floor area ratio calculation, including the loft. And the loft's going to be labeled as an artist studio or whatever it's going to be, but it's not a bedroom.
That's
Okay?
correct.
All right, next room. On that same plan, proposed second floor plan on sheet A102, in between, as we move from the garage, there's an existing bedroom to remain, and then there's an existing balcony to remain at the two corners, and there's a room, that has some notes in it. Existing windows to be replaced with opaque glass windows of the same size. Existing vinyl glass door to be removed and replaced with a new wood door with full glass panel. What room is that? It's not labeled.
Yes, so that is like a sitting room off the master bedroom with somewhat of like a wet bar, but it's only an access point to the bedroom and to the adjoining balcony.
So that is not a bedroom.
It is not a bedroom.
Okay, so those, in absence, when they don't have rooms on there, I take a conservative approach. So it is indeed 4 bedrooms. The plans are going to have to be revised to show 4 bedrooms, and all of those shaded floor area ratio calculations are going to have to be provided on the revised plans.
Certainly. I would also say that, as far as I'm aware, no room can be considered a bedroom if it's kind of used as a transitory space.
Okay. So that's where the confusion comes from. So there's references in my report to 5 or 6 bedrooms, and that's what those questions were about.
Does it have doors or anything? It's just,
Which,
It doesn't show.
It does have doors. You enter a space, there's a master bathroom to the right, there's a door to the balcony to the left, and directly in front of you is the actual bedroom space.
Greg, when we get the revision, or when you get the revision, will it include the, just to ensure the calculation on the lot coverage?
Yes.
Says, okay.
Certainly.
Thanks.
I was wondering,
yeah, we will confirm, so we need to confirm the lot coverage and as well as the floor area ratio.
and we didn't get your report yet,
This
which
is all like master
covers some of those items in there.
Well, don't talk about that other plan. That's,
No, we're only talking about this plan.
no, we're
I know.
talking about this plan, and my report reflects it.
Correct.
Okay. And please, do not submit plans after we deem you complete. All right. They were my questions. I don't know if anyone else had any questions.
John, just to follow up on that right now, that is the room that Mr. Hurlis asked about. There's a master bedroom, right? That's a sitting area?
Yes, it's part of the master bedroom suite.
Okay.
When you enter the room, the sitting area is on the sitting room or area is on the left. The master bedroom is on, or bathroom is on the right. Another pocket door to the master bedroom.
Okay. And the master bedroom is the bedroom on the far right, says existing bedroom to remain.
Yeah.
That's your master.
Yes, that's correct.
And again, just to be clear, today, there's 4 bedrooms, and after this, if this gets approved, it'll remain as
4 bedrooms.
4 bedrooms.
Craig, do you have any more questions?
Nope. I will address the rest of my comments when you ask me to do my review.
Does anyone else on the board have a question? Yeah, everybody good? Okay. Craig, can we have your report?
Sure. So my latest review memorandum for this application is dated January 17th, 2022. This is a project located in the R2 low-medium density residential district. You heard testimony from the applicant indicating what they're proposing to do. They are converting the garage and raising the floor to meet flood elevations. Was that what I heard you testify?
That's correct.
Okay, so the floor has to be raised to meet flood standards, and then there's addition above that. Okay?
Craig, before you leave page 1 again at the bottom, I'm still a little confused.
Yeah.
Your report said a total of 2,584 square feet and 5 or 6 bedrooms are proposed. Is that what we're talking about right now?
Yes, that's the reference to the 5 or 6 bedrooms. So that last sentence was where the confusion lied.
Yeah.
So all of my previous questions were trying to clarify what that was.
Okay, so it's actually 4 bedrooms.
So we're talking, you can strike 5 or 6, and we confirmed it at 4, and the plans are going to have to be revised consistent with that.
All right, thanks, Craig.
Okay. Moving on to page 2. This is the completeness review, the checklist requirements for the C and D variances. They've requested waivers from item number 23, which is the location of trees, item 26, which is the location of the utility infrastructure, item 27 is the proposed utility layouts, which are no changes, 28 is design calculations. This does not trigger stormwater review. They're reducing coverage, they're not increasing it. and as well as from providing a landscaping plan. That's items 23, 26, 27, 28, and 33, and I did support a waiver from those checklist waiver requests and recommended deeming the application complete.
Craig, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Number 23. Why is that, why is that a waiver?
Why is that a waiver? Okay, so normally, we ask an applicant to provide the locations of trees whenever they have an addition. This is wholly within the footprint of an existing structure. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So there's no trees being impacted. So therefore, in this case, it's really information we don't need to see.
Okay.
That's,
It's increasing in height and bulk, and if there's a big tree nearby, I would think that that would be something
Right.
we'd want to know.
And there is.
And there's a lot of construction going to go, I mean, it's a pretty big construction project, so it just seems to me like, I would want to know where the trees are on it, because I know we had a whole big thing in Westgate, maybe where the arborist came in, they have an arborist.
Okay.
He talked about construction and impact on trees, the radius of the size of the canopy and the area around it and all that. So if there was a really big tree near this, I know that we have conditions about.
There is a large tree.
I think I
down
can
near the
probably
property.
clear this up. John, do you plan on removing or cutting down any of the trees that are on this site now as a result of this project?
No.
Okay. So the trees that are there today will
No one,
remain?
it's rare that someone intends to hurt a tree. They do construction projects all the time that hurt the tree, so
Right.
I'm just suggesting that, I just want to understand the reasoning for that.
that was my reasoning, and I do look at Google Street Map when I do these reviews and check the locations of trees. I didn't see anything that was jumping out at me. Now, we have a Shade Tree Commission report that actually recommends, approved with the following conditions, barriers will need to be placed around existing trees, no excavation along the root lines of existing trees, particularly the American ash. So they were concerned with preserving that American ash, which is the nearest tree to that addition.
Yeah, that's what worries me about that waiver, in the sense that,
Okay.
fortunately, they were very careful and went out and looked at it, but a lazier person would look at the plans and see, oh, there's
Well-
no, seem to be trees and stuff like that.
The board does not have to grant that waiver, and we can ask them to put that on the compliance plans and show the protection of the roots if the board.
I'm not
feels
trying to
that.
make more work for us.
No, I-
I'm just reacting to the fact that that waiver.
They're going to have to, they're going to be providing revised plans anyway. It's not like there's going to be revisions.
I don't vote. I just was asking about the waiver, so I.
Yeah, and I truthfully gave you, my analysis. This is how I do all of my application.
Yeah, for a lot of them, there's small little
Yeah.
additions or little things inside. This is kind of like it's a pretty big thing. They're knocking down, building up higher. It seems like.
Right.
So it sounds like we've hashed out the tree thing. You'll comply with the Shade Tree Commission's.
Correct.
Thing. All right, so there'll be a condition when we get to it. I interrupted Craig, he didn't get to that, but there'll be a condition to comply with Shade Tree, and I'm gonna put in the date of that letter. Have you seen that letter?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so you'll comply with that?
Yes, we will.
All right, so that's good enough. As far as I'm concerned, but the board has its own decision-making on waivers and stuff.
Okay. Now, based on their testimony, we're down to two variances. This is a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot, and they're converting garage space into habitable space. The lot size in that zone is, the minimum required is 7,500, where 6,400 square foot exists. All of the surrounding lots are developed. There's no room for acquisition. Rear yard, 25-foot setback requirement, where 7.7 feet exists to the existing garage, 7.7 feet will be proposed to the new habitable space that is increasing both, converted from a garage to habitable space and increasing upwards. The parking variance goes away. So the threshold for requiring the third parking space is the fifth bedroom. So they're only having 4 bedrooms, they're only required to have 2 parking spaces. They've complied with that, so that variance goes away. So you're only dealing with 2 variances. Okay, I'll move on to my general review comments. These should all be conditions of approval. The zoning table should be revised to reflect the comments in this review memorandum, and variance should be noted as such. Item 2, we've asked for construction details to be provided on the plans to verify that permeable paving surface for the 50% lot coverage credit are appropriate, so those should be on the plan. The site plan must indicate the area which is being eliminated to address the existing non-conforming site coverage. So we're going to need to see some additional data to verify that you are indeed conforming with the 40% lot coverage. Same thing with the floor area ratio is identified in comment number 3. The city requires that you show those areas shaded on a plan so that we can verify. You did provide a table, and it has a breakout of it, but we need to be able to verify on the plan. And the loft area has to be shown on the plan also, as well. Okay, item 4 is our standard condition that we affix to all applications, is that the applicant has to verify that the proposed improvements will not result in grading or drainage problems or improvements that will otherwise change the existing drainage patterns for the subject lot. Should the improvements change the stormwater patterns, a grading and drainage plan should be required and submitted for review and approval to the board engineer. Congress Street is notorious for its drainage issues, so we're going to be very careful with this and make sure that the improvements do not cause, there's no downspouts directed at adjoining property lines, anything like that. So that's a standard condition. Item 5, we've asked for the residential site improvement calculation for parking be added to the zoning table and show that there's no parking variance necessary. 6 is our standard condition that we require that sidewalk, any disturbed sidewalk during construction activities is replaced to the satisfaction of the engineer. We've asked that construction details be provided on the plan and proposed improvements noted on the plan. Item 8 is our standard requirement of the applicant is required to post an inspection escrow, and the issuance of the certificate of occupancy is tied to satisfactory inspection of those improvements. 9 is compliance with the requirements of the Cape May Shade Tree Commission, and that approval is dated January 24th, 2022. Approval should be conditioned on compliance with all other state, county, and local approvals. This project is located within the historic district, so HPC approval is required. Have you gotten conceptual, final, anything?
No, not at this point.
Okay, so we'll need to see evidence of final HPC approval. You're required to comply with the applicable affordable housing requirements at the time of approval or issuance of building permits as applicable. And then finally, if the board grants you approval, you're required to revise the plans consistent with the conditions of that approval and submit 6 sets of compliance plans. We also, just for note, we did receive a fire department review. They approved that. There's no comments, and that was dated 1/20/22. So that's a summary of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Craig?
I'm sorry, this is really just edification. Under number 4, because you mentioned that Congress Street has a issue with flooding and drainage, are you going to be looking on the plans for specific areas where downspouts will be located? On the building, on the new?
So the way that we handle these without requiring, when we do not require the grading and drainage plan to be provided at this point, during the inspection, we look at where the downspouts are and verify after a rainstorm that there's no adverse impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone within 200 feet would like to speak? Neighbor? And there's no one beyond that, so I'm going to close it to the public at this time.
All right, everyone, if you're looking at me, the motion that I would recommend be made is always in the affirmative, but how you vote is up to you. And the motion would be, with the plans revised, to be 4 bedrooms, 2 spaces would be conforming, so they don't need that variance. But the motion would be to grant variances for lot size, rear yard setback, and the non-conforming structure and a non-conforming lot. subject to the waivers, or granting the waivers 23 through 33, and the conditions 1 through 13, which would include a clarification regarding the lot coverage and the slate, and also compliance with the Shade Tree Commission letter dated 1/24/22. That's the motion I recommend being made, but how you vote is up to you. We're going to vote on the plan as a whole. The lot size is more of a C1 than a C2. They can't change the lot size. The C2, you heard purposes of zoning testified to. I'm not sure if the expert testified to it, but I think Craig mentioned, and I may have missed it, was there's some flood compliance benefits as well, because I understand the garage is being raised in an area where there is somewhat chronic flooding. So that was another purpose of zoning that I think there was testimony, at least in the record somewhere on, in addition to the others outlined by the architect. Okay? But you weigh those and you vote.
You want to entertain a motion?
Yes, I entertain a motion.
Okay, I will make the motion as articulated by our counsel.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Murray, seconded by Ms. Hessel. Ms. Hessel?
She asked for your vote.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Mr. Ledwin? No. Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I missed your 200-foot list by about 20 feet, I think. I saw my neighbor across the street on there, but I wasn't on it. I'm on the other side of Windsor.
And also for the thoroughness that you do, I mean, with us, but with everybody who comes before you, now that this is all done, we love Cape May. And I'm just so happy that you're trying and keeping it the way that it's. We're tree huggers, don't have to worry about the trees, all the stuff we couldn't say.
Keep that in mind when you go before the HPC.
We will.
Yeah, yeah.
It's never the homeowner, it's always the contractor.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good evening, folks.
Everyone, bear with me 1 second. There was one thing I wanted to talk to the board about, real quick.
There's something else on the agenda.
Yeah, something else on the agenda.
Yeah, we got this.
Oh, all right, well, let me do this before I forget.
Okay.
2 seconds. When you all voted for the memorializing resolution, we kind of did it wrong. I don't want to make a big deal about it because it passed anyway, but I just want to talk to you about how that's supposed to work. I can read you from the statute, but you're going to have to take my word for it, is what it says. And it says this. When you're voting on a memorializing resolution, what's being voted upon is whether or not the resolution reflects the decision of the board, okay? So that if you voted against an application, let me restate that. If you voted consistent with the memorializing resolution, because sometimes a resolution can be denying an application, okay? If you voted and it went your way, then you can vote on the memorializing resolution. If you voted and it didn't go your way, then you don't vote on the memorializing resolution. You don't vote no, you just don't vote, because it's up to the people who were in the majority to decide if the resolution reflects the reasoning why they voted, okay? So you just abstain or say, I choose not to vote. And the now I'm gonna tell you, I try to explain it in a way that's, layman's terms. I'm gonna read you the statute so you hear it, and then I'll stop talking and we do the next thing. Under NJS 40:55D-10G2, it is provided that, quote, only the members of the municipal agency who voted for the action taken may vote on the memorializing resolution, and the vote of a majority of such members present at the meeting at which the resolution is presented for adoption shall be sufficient to adopt the resolution. Listen to this part. If only one member who voted for the action attends the meeting at which the resolution is presented for adoption, the resolution may be adopted upon the vote of that member. So as long as you have a quorum to have a meeting, if we only had, let's say we had 4 people here, but 3 of those voted no in the last application, and Diane was the only yes vote. Diane could vote yes for the memorializing resolution, the other folks don't vote, and it passes. All right? You understand that dynamic? That's what the statute says.
I don't understand it. I thought the vote was on the accuracy of the resolution. It apparently is not?
No, it's on whether it embodies the decision that you made when you voted in favor of it at the prior meeting. So a person who voted no can't say that that reflects their decision-making. So that's why they have the statute that says what it says. So this isn't a matter of interpretation. That is exactly what the statute says. If you didn't vote for the action that's being taken, you can't vote next time.
Okay, I was under misapprehension that it was.
So-
I take your word for it.
Maybe I'm wrong, maybe.
So in the
I'll take your
case,
word for
so in the case of an application that gets denied, all the no votes would
Right.
vote yes, that it, if your resolution accurately reflects what they did, then
Then everybody votes yes?
the majority
in that
voting
case, but
no
it-
would vote
Wait a
yes
minute, look
for
at
it.
this hypothetical. We have an application, everybody votes against it. That means that no one can vote for the resolution?
No. That's what my question was.
I'm sorry, say the
So
question again.
I'm saying that all the no
Hypothetical
votes would
is-
vote yes, that it,
We have something
So
that
long as
comes
the
before this
resolution said
board,
that you
and
voted no.
everybody votes against the variance.
Correct.
Everybody votes to the negative, okay? Does that mean that when this resolution comes before the board the next time, no one can vote for the
No,
resolution?
I told you to be careful that I corrected myself. I started to say only people who voted for it, and I said, no, if it went your way.
Right,
That
the
doesn't mean-
majority.
if it went your way, you may have been no, and it went your way, it was rejected.
Okay.
So then if it went your way, you can say, I voted no for the reasons that are in that memorializing resolution. But if you understand? So it's not a matter of for or
It's the
against.
however, the
Majority?
majority of the resolution.
Whatever the
which
action
direction-
taken was. So if the action taken was
majority
to say
votes.
no, if you voted for that action, you can vote for the memorializing resolution.
So
But I
to
think
use,
that
an-
is
yeah.
part-
Understand?
Well, I understand your
If the majority
explanation.
voted no, then they're voting
That-
in
You
there.
know, I was
And
under
the
the
resolution
misapprehension
reflects
that we were voting
a
on
no
the
vote,
accuracy
then
of
the
the
majority would
resolution.
vote yes.
Yeah, for example,
My no
how
vote.
do we vote on our appeal from the zoning, from the HPC?
Okay, I read you the statute. I maybe I misunderstand the
Okay, well,
statute.
maybe I should read the statute
So,
too when I go
You
back.
you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
will.
I'm just, I think the idea, and maybe I'm wrong about it, maybe it's saying anybody who voted, if you didn't vote before, you can't vote now, but what I think it's saying is, not just that you were there for the vote, I think it's saying that a memorializing resolution is supposed to be the board acting as a body, encapsulating the reasons why they did what they did in the prior meeting.
So the vote's just a reaffirmation of what went on when.
Right.
uh,
By the majority.
And in a sense, it's the reasons why the vote was the vote. And I think what this statute is intended to say is, it's not up to people who voted against it to give the reasoning why, it's up to the people who voted, I'm saying for it, but the people who voted in the majority, okay, get to vote, are the only ones who vote on whether the resolution reflects what the majority did.
Okay.
I think that's what this is.
You vote no, you abstain.
You abstain.
You abstain, yeah.
That's right. And I think the idea is this, I think, suppose it were the other way. Suppose the vote was 4-3 at the last thing, right? You 4 voted no, and you 3 voted yes.
Okay.
Okay? Now we're at our next meeting,
Right.
okay? And 3 of you 3 aren't here. And that resolution comes up for a vote. That resolution would lose 3-1.
If that's how the voting went.
And that doesn't make sense.
Sense, right.
So instead, they say, no, only the people who voted for the action taken, meaning the people who voted for what happened at the last meeting, who were in the majority, vote at this one. That way you don't have, at the next meeting, the people who lost at the last meeting deciding the fate of the resolution that says what the people at the last meeting did. I think that's what that is designed to do.
Okay, what you say makes sense.
That makes
I guess that's the difference between a resolution and minutes. So if they were minutes, we would vote for the accuracy. If it's a resolution, I guess we have to look at the statute. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And we have to also go back and make sure we recall how, we voted during the discussion at the end, as the resolution
Yeah,
was
you
presented.
really should.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's how that works. And
Okay.
I feel, not just what I read on that, but I think I litigated that once, about what that really meant.
Oh, is that right?
I do
That's
think I
kind of an
did. That's why when we were doing that, and I heard the vote, and I was like, what was that vote? Like, we were voting no, and I,
paying attention, I was like,
it doesn't matter. I said,
Me
well,
too.
maybe I should explain it. So I reread it, and that's what I think it means, and that's the rationale, is otherwise you would have at the next meeting, if not all the people who voted
In the
who voted in the
affirmative,
majority last time, it's, the dynamic's different the next time, the resolution would fail, and that doesn't make any sense.
I think my understanding or interpretation of it was I was supposed to be consistent with my prior vote. Yeah, and I think I thought that you had the same thought. So if I had voted no previously, I thought I was to be consistent in my voting
You
pattern.
just don't vote.
We just don't vote.
Okay,
I got it.
Let me ask you one final question. The last page of the resolution, it says moved by, seconded by, those in favor, those opposed. It's never filled out. Does this eventually get filled out?
Yes. After you, tonight, it'll get filled out. Now, it'll get filled out 3-2, which is interesting, but it doesn't matter, it passes. But that gets filled out, I think, by Karen later on, after she hears the vote. And then it's signed with that stuff on there to verify that.
So it will appear, if it's moved by, for example, if I moved by it, it would say moved by Bill Murray, okay, seconded by whoever. Those in favor of what?
The vote, if we did it right, it would be 3-0-2.
Oh, just the number, not the names. Is that what? those-
Now, the minutes reflect the names. I assume she just writes the number in.
No, I'm still just a little bit confused about the back here, but I don't want to straighten it out. You know, I'll take a look at it. I guess we can all think about it, but I appreciate you. I'm sure you're right.
I'm not absolutely sure I'm right, but it's the best I can do, and I read the statute, so.
Did you win the
And it
litigation?
makes sense.
As far as he
I
can
never
remember.
remember what side I'm on.
Remember? Okay,
Probably yes.
good, good.
Also, so that's good for the clarification.
Mrs. McDade, yes, she's on the board. Turn your
Can you tell me where?
name around.
Oh, I'm so
There we
sorry.
go. Maureen. She was one of our applicants, but you were on the board before.
Decision making.
No, this is my
No?
first time on the board.
19.
Did you miss her? There's another man, too, but he's not here.
Mary's not here.
No, but there was a,
Oh, Sam Venuto?
Mr. Venuto.
Mr. Venuto is not here. He's on vacation.
Are you going to talk about these?
Okay, so we
Or
have,
Craig, you're going to talk?
I'll talk about it.
All right.
So the last thing on the agenda for discussion is the discussion on the 2019, 2020, and 2021 zoning board of adjustment decisions with possible action taken. I don't know that we need to have possible action taken, but I'll explain what we do. So after every year, your secretary, and she did a wonderful job on this, she compiles a list of all the applications that were heard, and the types of applications that were granted or denied, and
they're different years.
what zones they were in. These are used by the planning board when they do master plan reexaminations to evaluate the pattern of variances that you're granting to see if there needs to be zoning changes. For instance, there was a pattern that was going on with this board years ago where applicants were coming in on undersized lots with lot area, lot width, et cetera, that were coming in with essentially additions that conformed with everything else, but would have to come here. And this board made a recommendation to them, said, there's a pattern, we're granting these all the time. So at that point, that recommendation went to the planning board, and the planning board recommended to city council that they enact an ordinance that would essentially not require them to come in here for those types of variances. So that's what this is used for. So I think that, I guess the action would be just to forward these to the planning board for their information.
I think that a resolution is written and then it gets moved on and then we send it up to planning board.
Just make a resolution, a motion for a resolution to approve these and pass them.
I guess just to, Rich, do you have any input? I wasn't here before for an annual review. Just I could show you what they did before.
Yeah, no, I think that's very appropriate. I mean, we'll just,
Yeah,
you know, if the board is comfortable with this as their report, then we'll do a resolution next week that submits this, so that was a record that we did it and that the board agreed with it. Would you have any particular comment to go with it, or is it just?
It's for their information to utilize during the next master plan reexamination. if, certainly if the board, if this zoning board thinks there should be changes, they could always add those. But
Greg,
those should be
this is-
discussed at a, like, the board should decide, not a specific person.
Is this
Maybe
some-
one comment may be that, I'm sorry, that the system worked, that resolution seems to have reduced the number of,
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
you know, applications and did have the associated cost savings for the residents and stuff like that. I mean, because it does seem, I mean, it did work. It was a good.
Absolutely worked.
So my question slash comment would be, that the master plan won't be revisited for another 7 years.
6.
6, okay.
So
I know that you.
2019, it's, so it's.
You're already looking forward to it, Greg.
Yeah.
But in the interim, I mean, is this document shared with the zoning officer? I mean, are there things that the zoning office could look at and maybe make recommendations earlier to city management and therefore council on changes, if there are patterns that are being seen, versus waiting another 6 years if we, you know, if history has shown that there has been a positive result that has come from, you know, this type of an analysis, does it suggest that perhaps, speeding that process up might save taxpayers some money on things and patterns that
This-
are more routine?
This board did exactly that. They didn't wait till the next re-exam.
Okay, all right,
They actually made that recommendation because we are seeing just a pattern of
Okay, all right.
those types of applications come in. So they forwarded that request to the planning board, and it started with this board to the planning board, and then it went up to city council.
Okay.
Craig, a question. With your experience on other zoning boards and other municipalities, does it require an action on the part of the board to send this up, or is this just done pro forma?
I've never seen anything formal done with this.
Okay, because it's a good idea.
No,
like you said.
exactly. So I just think that, the board, the planning board is the board that is tasked with, doing those reexaminations, and they're tasked with essentially making recommendations with regards to our land use code and the zoning code. So they should get this.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very helpful to
Yeah.
them. Yeah, and Karen, it's a nice job. I mean, I'm sure it took a while to do that.
I had help.
Okay. Any other business? Anybody have anything?
Do we need a motion for that, Mr. King?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes?
Yeah, so
We need
moved.
a motion for this first.
No.
Oh,
we
oh,
need
for
a
this.
motion.
Oh, that's right, you said, okay. Yeah, I'll make the motion that we, say what, Craig? That we forward this to the planning board. For their information. Yeah, I'll make that motion, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Murray, seconded by Mrs. McDade. Mrs. Werner?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel? Yes. Mr. Ledwin?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mrs. McDade?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we can have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Now,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night and a great Memorial Day weekend.